All right. Good evening, everybody. Interview number 3 today. Moving right along in the short conference. I have Donovan Catholic coach Glenn Jansen. Glenn, thank you for joining me this evening.
Of course, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Now, excited to get back there. How did the first 2 days go so far?
It was great. It was great to see the girls and get in the gym, especially with our team. We have some new faces and some returning faces, and it's the first time we've actually been able to be in a gym together with some of these young ladies. It's like everybody else is adjusting to the COVID protocol, and remember what order to do everything from Purell to spacing to washing hands to one in person in the bathroom, masks on. And the girls have done an amazing job. I think since Donovan has been open since September, so these kids have been going to school with masks on the whole time. So they're really accustomed. Not that you're ever comfortable wearing it, but as comfortable as it can be. And the kids are great.
Yeah, and I think that is an advantage. That most of the Catholic schools have been going to school full time. It's probably a little bit less of an adjustment going through the protocols and the safety measures that the school districts have put in place. Before we get into this season, I just recap last season. What was your message and the goals you set for your team when the last season started?
So our last season, again, we were a transitional team in terms of we had only a couple starters back. We had our first ever international player. Donovan has a national students program, and traditionally they get players from usually Spain and China. And then last year they brought in their program to Eastern Europe as well as Spain and China. So that was our first, go around. So that was interesting. Some, the language barrier, discussing things, the girls getting used to her and vice versa. And because she was such an important player for us and such a big personality, that was a big adjustment, kind of getting used to that. But basketball is basketball. So the kids adjusted, the coaches worked together. And we really, we had lost a couple players going to last season, one transfer, and then arguably one of our best players because of her letter of intent to Georgia to play softball. Jada didn't come out. So we kind of went into the season down 2 returning starters, and Tasha being added to the mix with Liv and both Livs, Jordan and Carolina. It was a really, really good season. We had ups and downs, and we struggled a little time. We had some injuries and people missing games here and there. But for the most part, we got better as the season went on. We gelled. The girls, made a lot of great memories. And I will say that even though it took us a couple months and we had a banquet, via Zoom, like we're doing today, when the girls, are crying their eyes out at the end of the banquet and the parents are staying on even though they don't have to say thank you and to talk about memories, not about a score or remember those funny things. That's really what it's all about when it's all said and done. So if you measure success by the joy of your players, we had a successful season last year.
I thought I enjoyed watching your team. I thought fun to watch. Couple games that I want to talk about. The first time I saw your team play was Jackson Liberty at Jackson Liberty. Your team played very well, and it was the first time I saw the transfer from overseas. And you could see that she was a pretty dominant player, and you could see her style was different than what you're used to seeing in the short conference. Sometimes a little flashy, I thought, but I thought she was a fun player to watch, and I thought you needed to have your head on a swivel because you didn't know when a pass was coming from her either.
Absolutely, and it's interesting about Tasha. Tasha had never ever played man defense ever before, right? In Europe, they play mostly exclusively zone. Like she was on the highest level at her age group before and then before you become professional and man to man. She said she hadn't did that since she was like 8 or 9 years old. That's all they do. And they play their whole season. They might play, she says, like a select team gets to play 18 games. So we're playing close to 30 games, and she's like, the season never ends. But it was great because that game really was Tasha. Tasha struggled a little bit with the pace and going 6 days a week and the commitment. Not that she had a problem with it, but just that we expect a lot more in the short conference here than even over. In her country, she goes away for 2 weeks, plays for basketball, and then she goes back, and then it's back and forth. But like a constant grind like that, she had never been accustomed to. And that Jackson Liberty game was a huge coming out for her because we struggled a little bit. We were missing some shots early on, and then she hit probably half between the 3-point line and half court. She had a shot as the time was expired, going to half court, turned into an 8-point game, and then she came out, and then between her and Jordan and Liv, I mean, it was just one thing after another. And it was that tape that we sent out that helped her land. She came back to America this year. She's playing JUCO out in Arizona with 3 other girls from either Slovakia and Montenegro. So apparently, between the coach getting connected to her and then her connections from some of her teammates, she's now out there playing Division I JUCO. So that in hopes that in 2 years she can transfer somewhere. So that was the tape that she sent out. Like when coaches were looking at her, like, I've arrived, basically.
Yeah, that was it was impressive. Another game I want to talk about that I was at, not the outcome you wanted, was the Toms River East game. To me, you guys did a good job slowing Jordan Maganin down, but then they had that other player that kind of just went off from deep. She hit 4 threes.
Yeah, I mean, when your best 2 players shoot like 2 for 16 from behind the arc, you're not going to beat good teams, especially a team that's saying like, hey, we can't guard you man to man, so we're gonna sit in the zone and you got to knock down shots.
Mm-hmm.
And when you shoot 2 for 16 from 3, and your 2 best scores or 2 of your 3 best scores are making up 50% of the points on the average, you're not going to win those games. And that young lady, it was her senior year, and she just, if I remember correctly, I think she was a senior. And she had the game of her life against her, and that's why you play the game. Some days you show up, and those kids that are that role player, and they show up and they say, "Hey, kid, this is going to be my legacy. I'm going to always go back. I'm 40 years old." We're talking about the time we went to Donovan and we beat him up pretty badly. And Coach Cohen's a good guy. We're good friends, and he's had our number a couple times early on. The year before in the WOVM, Lizzie Gillen hit that 3 in the corner as time was expiring. And he's a good guy. So, you don't want to lose anybody, but you tip your hat to the team from the other side of town and you get ready for the next one.
Yeah. Moving into, this season, you talked briefly about, getting to your team, understanding the protocols, but what do you think some of the other challenges that you might come up with during the season? I know one of the challenges a lot of coaches brought up, the limited time you had with your team during the summer when you usually get a little more time.
Yeah, I mean, so we've never had a practice together.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the rules and what you can participate in, what you can't participate in, when you can coach and what you can't coach. Even in the summer when we had an opportunity to be together,
mm-hmm.
we, other than trying to meet at a park one time, we really weren't able to have any practices. So it was like meet the girls, have the girls meet each other, get to know each other, and go play. Whether we were on point, or then we played out No Boys Allowed up in Elizabeth. And again, you have no, our school said even during those phases in the summer when they're opening up protocols, only for the fall sports, no gym access. So when you have a program that has new players, underclassmen that are rising up as well, some transfers, the thing we need more than anything is time. These girls know how to play basketball, but they don't know how to play together.
Yeah, chemistry.
And for a lot of us, we're struggling with, going from 2 weeks, boom, to the opening day. But these girls may have played together 2 or 3 years together. And so we don't have that. So we're trying to discover it. But it's definitely a challenge for sure.
Now, we'll start talking about some of your players. It probably starts with your senior leader, Jordan. Jordan has had the honor of being my first 2-time guest for an interview. Just talk Jordan and what you think, her role, because, you see her posts on Twitter, you could see that she's like a born leader, and you could tell she leads the team. So what do you expect out of her this season?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually lucky. We actually have 2 great senior captains, and they lead differently, but they kind of complement each other. So Jordan is kind of out in front. She's kind of the vocal person. Even when you did that interview, she kind of, I jokingly said, "Is Rachel always that quiet, or just not give her?"
I said the same thing.
But that's just Jordan. That's Jordan. As I joke with her, we even during the summer, we work in the same restaurant. I got her a job. We work in the summer, and I'm one of the cooks, and she's one of the waitresses. And I even joke with her because Jordy doing Jordy things. It's just who Jordan is. So she takes responsibility sometimes to wear it and become that leader, become that voice. And it's really nice because our other captain is a senior, Alex Jalosi, and she's more of a leader by action. Kind of like the Derek Jeter type. So the two of them, in terms of like communication with the girls, organization, developing the climate and the culture of who we are trying to be. Getting involved in whether it's volunteering even in amidst this pandemic, or like staging photos for the Instagram or getting kids the message out to the school. Those two are doing a really great job and really being great ambassadors, not just for who we are as Donovan girls basketball, but Donovan Catholic High School. They really are, you know. And I'm really blessed to have those two great young ladies to kind of handle some of the stuff that captains have to handle. You know what I mean? Things have changed years ago. Captains were like, okay, this freshman carries the water, but nowadays we live in a world where you can't always do that. So sometimes it's like, who's going to handle a positive message on Instagram? Who's going to reach out about pasta dinner? Who's going to reach out to the parents? Who's going to pray? Who's going to lead us? You know, all those sort of things. And those two, like I said, Jordan and Alex are great. And Jordan, you know, her leadership isn't just, you know, and that stuff too. Obviously, she leads by example on the court. You know, and we went through that process with her and everything she went through during the summer. And it's interesting because, you know, JT is our AAU coach. JT and I, you know, taught together at Colts Neck for many years. We're very good friends. We're Tom's River guys. You know, both of our kids grew up in the Colts Neck High School gym when he was the head girls coach, when I was the assistant boys coach. Our kids grew up. So I think in some ways it makes sense that Jordan has developed under both of us because we kind of are used to working together. I used to bring my freshman boys in to press JT's girls when he had those great teams to get them ready for Neptune. You know, freshman boys running around pressing, you know, Brooke and Tiffany. So JT and I have used to being work together for all these years. So I'm not surprised that Jordan has had success she has, and it's almost been like a seamless transition. He majors in sarcasm, I minor in it.
He does major.
But you know, Jordan's a tough cookie, so she can take it. So I'm really, like I said, you know, she does everything you ask her to. Even today after practice, she wanted to shoot a little bit. So, you know, we have to close the gym down and clean it before the boys come in. So I'm like, all right, you can just get a couple of shots, but she's always looking to get better, you know, and improve her craft for sure.
The next returning player I want to talk about is Olivia. I saw her play a bunch during the summer at AAU, and to me, it seems like she made like leaps and bounds from last season just during the summer. I'm expecting, you know, good things out of her this season. What's your thoughts on Olivia?
I mean, listen, Liv is undervalued and understated. She's got a great frame. She has this really deceptively, or I should say, this deceptive length to her that she's just an annoying type of player, right? She's able to take drives to the basket and somehow score even when the defense is there. She's able to bend it. She when she puts her hands out, she's a great defender. She tips in deflections and she's all over the place. We have these stats called hustle stats, which are all like, you know, the unsung things. And Liv is always one of the ones up there on that stat sheet for us, always doing all that, whether it's a tip of deflection. I'd like to say charge, but nobody takes charges anymore. But all that other stuff, right? All those hustle points, jumping in bleachers. She does all that. And what's great is, you know, she never stops. She never gets tired. She always finds her second gear isn't so much better than her first gear. It just it doesn't stop, right? It's always continuous, and she's always in attack mode. And she's really receptive to coaching. She's another, again, I'm blessed. She's a tough cookie as well. You can challenge her, and it's a yes coach. It's a I got to coach. But yeah, I think Liv, especially because her skill set, because she's not just a basketball player. She's also a soccer player. So I think her skill set translates and allows her to do the things that some of the other girls can't do or maybe don't want to do. So she's kind of all over the place, for us.
Yeah, I didn't know she played soccer until the beginning of soccer season. I got to see her play, and she's a very good soccer player.
Oh, for sure. And her, again, her speed, and she's like a gazelle. She's always got these long strides, and it's not always pretty, but it works, right? It works.
Now, next, I want, you got 3 big transfers that, coming in and, everyone expected they're going to make an impact right away. Let's start with, Gabby Ross. She had a pretty good freshman season at Manchester. You got to play against them twice last season. Great offensive threat, could shoot the ball, could take it to the hoop. Talk about, Gabby and what do you expect her to do this season?
Well, Gab's addition is great. Gab was hurt most of the summer. She got hurt playing AAU. Yeah. So we actually only had her for 2 games throughout all the point league. And we didn't have her at all during No Boys Allowed. So she actually only played when we played Manchester and Jackson Memorial. Those 2 games, we played them back to back, like I think the opening week of the Point Pleasant League. And she played in those 2 games, and she did great, obviously. And then she got hurt that weekend an AAU scrimmage with her Achilles. So she really has been out. She was able to like hop in for 2 of our games at the end of the Manasquan League, or the Wall League rather. So I know the least, about Gabby in terms of how she interacts with the team. But because we played her last year, I am very familiar. She's a great shooter. She's tough. She's always on. One of the other coaches said she's like a dog that gets off the leash. She's just like, she's a ball hog in terms of where defensively, where the ball is. She wants to be on the ball. She's always looking to trap, even if you don't ask her to. She's actually had a little more composure than I thought she did, especially because she's only a sophomore. Usually the younger girls, you go through the maturity process, but she when practice starts, she's no joke. And she has a great skill set. I think she's a great complement to the other girls in the program. And what's great about really what we have at our school is that because the girls have played, 13 of them have really been playing together, even though there hasn't been a practice. So all the girls know each other. So by now, Gab and Shelbie and Kaya, and the other Kaya too, they're not really transfers. They're kind of cemented, and they've really been part of this little bubble that we've been in. So I think, like I said, we need to practice because it's just a part that we haven't been able to do. But I think in terms of girls knowing each other, Gab also grew up playing AU with Liv Conroy when they were little in the Manchester Toms River Dynamics. So what's interesting is that Gab and Liv grew up playing together until Liv got into high school because they're a year apart, but when they were in middle school, they played all the way together. Shelbie and Mackenzie, they grew up in Jackson together, so they've played all the way together. And then Kaya has played with both Gabby and Shelbie growing up. So in some ways, even though they all have found their way to Donovan, there's more familiarity than people understand.
Talking about Shelbie, I only saw Mater Dei once last season, and to me, what stood out, that game was her defense. She is a tough person to get by, and she type of player that could, in my opinion, defend on the perimeter and defend inside. Because she's tough. Talk a little bit about Shelbie.
Yeah, I mean, I love Shelbie doing anything around the basket, right, on both sides of the ball. I think she's got a great motor to her. I think the only thing holding back Shelbie close to the basket is Shelbie, right? Is because, maybe, she comes to our school and maybe she's one of the bigger girls. So now the expectation is that she's able to be a little more physical. But you're right. She's very versatile. She can defend away as opposed to, as compared to inside. And that's another kid, you tell her something once, yes, coach. And even if it doesn't always go the right way, and if they don't execute it, they're still saying, is that what you meant? Or what could I have done differently? She's hungry to get better. I love her work ethic. And you're right. She for us, she's going to be that type of player that might have to guard bigger girls. But if she guards smaller girls, she'll take that challenge as well. And I think what's great about that, again, is that because we're so new to each other, or at least to me, that these girls have been receptive to anything I ask them to do. But I'm excited about what Shelbie's going to do, as a Griffin for sure.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see Barnegat, so I don't know much about Kai Joseph. Can you just talk a little bit about her?
Yeah, Kaya's a complete player. I mean, Kaya, she can play any of the guard positions. She's a very cerebral player. She's very smart. She does everything with a purpose. She's very deliberate. I also think that she has poise that some of the other girls on our program don't have, or haven't had to have. She was the person when she was at Barnegat. She was the go-to player, and now here she doesn't have to be. And I think you're going to see her flourish. Obviously, the stats and the direction that she's accustomed to is not going to be what we do with the cast that we have and the team we have. But again, when I send a message out on Remind, or I post something to the Google Classroom, she's often the first one to respond or ask questions, or she's the first one when she makes a mistake to take ownership for that. Put her hand up, which is, to me, is like an old school thing. My bad.
Yeah.
A lot of kids shirk responsibility because they feel like, what's the big deal? I play 100 basketball games a year. It's not a big deal. I mean, but she's the first one to say, hey, I make a mistake. And her poise and her leadership are going to be a really important, part for us for the next 2 years.
Is she a junior this year?
She's a junior. That's okay. Yeah.
I want to talk about Mackenzie. Do you expect her to have a bigger role this season? I mean, I know she got some good minutes last year, but
yeah, Mac is Mac, it's funny because Mac and Alex are similar, that they're both soccer players, so they're always in shape, they're ready to go. And Alex is going to be that guard, and Mac's going to be that big for us to really do a lot of the dirty work, to really step up and do more than they've ever been expected to do. And I know that they're ready for the challenge. My favorite thing about Mac is she's the opposite of everybody else. Mac is goofy. She's silly. She's hard on herself. But other than that, like, everything just rolls off of her like water off a duck's rear end. Like, nothing bothers her. Nothing sticks to her. So she's always ready for the next play. She's always ready for the next play, which I love. And she's going to have to be tough inside. She's going to have to be the one that's on the top of the press sometimes. She's going to have to be guarding a big, and she's going to be physical. This summer, when we were successful playing against really good teams, she went up against the biggest players that were around and boxed them out and worked hard and did, controlled the glass. And she, for me, being a basketball purist, she's the type of big, even though in other schools she really was not that big. For us, she's big. She doesn't have any delusions of grandeur. She gets a rebound, she chins it, she gets it to a guard, and she runs to the rim, right? She's not looking to dribble 1,000 times and go between her legs and all that stuff. Ask her to do that. She would do that. If when we're running 5 out, she can play outside. But she realizes that coach has her in there for a reason to do certain things. And we have one other player like that too, like Bella Kenmure. Bella's the toughest girl on our team. She's a senior. She's a basketball lacrosse player. She's just a tough as nails kid. And if Mac's not beating somebody up, Bella's going to be beating somebody up. And we really have this core. We have 5 seniors on the team. And Alex and Kaya Four are other 2 seniors, and they're also going to give us a huge lift and really just fit in nicely. Again, I've been doing this a long time. We were joking that I'm not old enough to be a basketball coach for 18 years, but I am somehow. And the last 8 years, as a head girls coach. And what I love about this group is everybody comes prepared. Everybody is positive. Now, I know it's easy to say you haven't really had to go through anything right so far. That's all great stuff until you lose a game. But I will say that even the easy stuff sometimes isn't easy with a certain group of players or personalities. This is the first group where the entire roster are my kids, because when I came in, I inherited a lot of players, a lot of talent. This is the first group that they're all mine. And you can see it in how they act and how they respond to me and just how excited they are. The fact that we did No Boys Allowed and we did it, the other 2 leagues, it just shows that they're committed and they're really into getting better and giving Donovan Catholic girls basketball, a great name out there.
Any other players that were on the roster that you think are going to have a bigger role this year?
Yeah, so I ran through, the last 2 seniors were Alex Matetia Ford and Kaya Foy, who transferred midway through the season last year from Barnegat. Those are our seniors. I went through our juniors, and then we have 3 other sophomores who are, huge part of our future. And we've got Marley Main, who's a guard, Emma Conroy's a guard, and Payne Mirror, who's a forward. Again, what's great about these girls is that Marley's been through it with us last year. Emma and Payne are varsity athletes in other sports, so they're going to come in hungry, ready to go, in great shape, and help give the team the lift that they need.
Before we wrap up, I just want to go through your schedule. You're in a pretty decent division. You're playing the 3 Times River teams, and there's such a rivalry, with Donovan and the 3 Times River. When I had some of the soccer players on, like Abby Alexa, and Faith from Times River North, I asked, at the soccer games, you always saw, whether it was Times River North playing, you saw Donovan Catholic kids, you saw Times River South kids, or vice versa. You always, it seems like that town, it gets competitive when you play each other, but when you're playing other teams, they all support each other.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And what I think it starts, to be fair, with the coaches, right? Like Vicky, Kevin, and myself, we all get along. I consider them friends. We all see each other in town and in shop, right? There's good closeness. Like Liv grew up playing soccer. A lot of those kids. Sydney Lorenzen, I used to coach her brother in basketball growing up in TRBA. And on the north side, Wavershack, my son grew up and went to school with her siblings. So like we all know each other. So there's this connection. So when we play each other, it's intense, right? A lot of those North girls, they grew up coming to the Donovan basketball camps with Coach Carney and I. So I've known all those kids growing up and coming up through the way. I'm friends with some of their parents and some of the connections. So you're right. It makes the rivalry interesting and fun. But the best part is that when it's over, you're back to being friends with them, and you see them down the street, you see them at the shop, or you see them at church, and that's true for a lot of the sports. That battle of TR is definitely a pride thing, but there's also a lot of mutual respect there for sure.
Yeah, that's something that impressed me during soccer season. When they weren't playing each other, they were there supporting, their fellow towns, teams and stuff. I just want to see, you to finish out your schedule. I think Jordan brought up you added Manchester and Jackson Memorial, right? Two very good teams.
Yeah, the back end specifically. I mean, listen, every game with this season is going to be challenged because you never know who you're going to be missing or what's going to happen. Not only that, but if the game is canceled, can you pick somebody up? But the back end of our schedule, specifically with North, Manchester, Jackson Memorial, and even Lacey's at the back end, and Coach Van did a great job with that program last year. So we are going to, as our season goes on, it's just going to continue to grind, which is what you really want a season. But now you have to kind of do it in a sprint as opposed to a marathon like we're normally used to. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I would have wished we could have kept some of our old Beat South rivalries, but when Dave and I saw that we weren't in the same division, we knew that listen, Manchester and Donovan have to play each other. I think we're the only team in the last 4 years that has beaten them in Beat South, so we had to keep that game on the schedule. Jackson Memorial, Rachel beat us up pretty good last year, but she had like a big monk on her back because we had kind of beat her like several years in a row, and so she was definitely coming for us. And I jokingly said to her, I'm like, you beat us by 30-something last year. That still only counts as one win. I still got you in the win column. So we wanted to make sure we had those, we keep those rivalries because I think it's also important that, North, Jackson Memorial, Donovan, and Manchester, we're trying to build Ocean County basketball like the rest of Ocean County. But I think it's important that not only do we, we want to go out and always, test ourselves against everybody else, but I think it's important to develop that rivalry and also, battle for Ocean County, right? I think that's important. And Manchester's held the crown for several years, and we'll see where it's going to go in the future and what we have in store for us this season.
Yeah. You talk about, the short season, I saw Coach Hine, he was scouting a soccer game, and I met him, and he said his exact words, "This was my shortest season on paper, but by God, it was the longest season it felt like." So. For
sure. I think the resiliency of the kids and the parents to do everything they can to get the season. Are we disappointed? Of course we are. We were set to host the first ever showcase for girls basketball for cancer. And we weren't able to. I lost both parents in 2018, and we were running the showcase kind of in my mom's honor. But I got to be honest, we've been able to pivot. We pivoted once to have like a Coaches vs. Cancer week where all the shore schools were like signing up to basically advertise and generate revenue for the cause. But then when the COVID delay happened again, all the schedule we had created was revamped. So now we're just doing a challenge. So basically February is National Cancer Prevention Month. So I've got a lot of the Shore Conference girls teams are ordering the shirts and getting sponsors. And we as a collection are going to honor those cancer warriors and their survivors. And the girls are going to play for a cause. And we got a lot of great programs that have already signed on. And we're still going to be able to help Coaches vs. Cancer, the Jimmy V Fund, and the American Cancer Society, even though we can't host that one-day great showcase. But we're, we got on the calendar for next year, and COVID aside, we're gonna be ready to bring some great basketball to Ocean County for sure.
Yeah, and that's great that you were able to adjust that where you could still raise some money for such a good cause. And I was disappointed when we found out there's not going to be any of these one-day events. Especially I love going to events when I know the money's going to a good cause. I definitely circle. I don't care who's playing. I try to circle those games on my calendar. To show support to those kind of events.
Yeah, and we're still going to we're going to run the same way. We're going to run it the state versus the shore fight for a cure. This year we're supposed to have Bishop Bar and Saddle River Day and Pope John, just to name a few teams. Manchester, Red Bank Regional, ourselves. We had 6 games on the schedule. So we're just going to try to, run it again, and hopefully those teams will be able to participate. If they can't, we'll get some other great teams. But we really want to try to showcase some of the best programs, some of the programs on the rise from Ocean County, Monmouth County, from all the shore, and really match them up to quality games for everybody to come see down in Toms River.
That's great. And hopefully we get through this season, we get through the spring, and hopefully it starts getting better during the summer.
Absolutely, for sure, 100%.
Well, Coach, I'll let you go. I appreciate you taking time out tonight, to talk about your team. And I
Thank
wish
you.
you
I appreciate it.
I wish you and the girls luck this season. Are you I've been asking at the end of this. Is Donovan going to be able to stream the games?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we sign up with Huddle Live. So we
Okay.
have this amazing camera that is hands-free, and it's a smart camera. I don't even understand how it works, but basically it's depicting motion, and it's so not only can we stream it live to all of our parents, but for our home games, that means I don't have to have anybody record it.
Yeah.
From the live stream, it'll go right into our bank, and all the short conference coaches are sharing with each other. So because you can't really scout with the nature of the season.
Yeah.
And then on the road, we'll have to do it the regular way, but all of our home games will be streamed for sure.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of schools made the adjustment, to get ready for basketball to be able to stream the boys and the girls, So
Yeah.
which is the parents, especially senior parents, they want to be able to see their kids, finish out their careers.
I think it's just for every school they had to find the right platform and the right technology and the right contract and what was cost effective because every school's in a different situation with everything going on. So for sure. Nick, before you let me go, I just want to ask one question. If I send you a Donovan hat, we get you wear that and advertise our interviews?
Yes.
Sounds good.
The issue is my hair is a little long, and the St. Rose hat is the only hat that I have that actually fits good. And I don't. Jordan sent me the East Stroudsburg hat. I think that's in my car. I gotta get that.
We'll get you a Donovan hat, I promise.
Yeah, it's funny because another parent said to me, "I gotta send you a hat for their school," and then Goody. I said to Goody, I go, "I need to get a Jackson hat, especially since my niece will end up going,
Okay.
so to show support."
Absolutely.
And then I get the comments when I showed up to that wall league. I get the comments from the coaches, "Why do you got that hat on?" But it's my school. And
that's all right. Listen, that's why I'm at Donovan now. It's my school too, and you always got to rep your alma mater for sure. It's just looking like it's a little ragged, so we'll get you a shiny new, blue one to go.
Okay. Did you play sports at Donovan? Did you?
I did. I was not a very good basketball player. I still am not. I just always had a passion for the game. In fact, some of my best mentors were the basketball coaches. Bob Sunday is still teaching there. Mm-hmm. He's the reason why I'm a basketball coach. And really quickly, one of the coolest moments when I decided to leave coaching at Colts. I still teach there in my 20th year, but to leave coaching there to come back to alma mater, I had to have a parent meeting for basketball in one of the classrooms, and you sign up to rent, to use the room like you would just so that they know. And when I got in there, they happened to put me in Mr. Sunday's old room. He's not in that room anymore, but I walked in. There was on the dry erase board, there was a message: "Good luck, coach. Go get him," from Coach Sunday. So for me, that was the coolest thing ever. The guy that you idolize. He was a short guy. I'm not that tall. He was a yeller. I was a much louder person when I started my career. So, I would come to class and I would sit in the pit, which is what we had at Donovan back then. And we would just talk shop. Some of my best friends were some of the best basketball players that we had at Donovan. So I've always had a love for the game. So I transitioned to that in my professional career, and coming back to Coach Donovan and to be, to share the same gym with Coach Carney, who's like a legend, is one of the best parts of my coaching experience for sure.
That's a great story right there. I remember when I wrote for the newspaper, I covered, because I wrote for the Coast Star, which is St. Rose Manasquan Wall.
Yeah.
And they sent me to Donovan one Stallworth. So it was 2001 maybe.
Okay, yeah.
He was a nice little point guard.
Yeah, Randall. Not only would he play, so I was just starting my career on the boys' side. So I remember, we lost when I was coaching Colts Neck at a buzzer beater by Tommy Carter from half court at the Rataco Center to knock us out by Donovan. And those were all my friends. Those are guys I went to high school with. Dave Manso, John Knight. They're all on the coaching staff there. Just to have that connection is tremendous. But just to give you another quick story, when I started coaching, I walked into Wall High School for the first time, and my old coach Tom Redu is the AD there. Yep. He's been the AD there for like a million years. But I remember when I had him, as a teacher freshman year, and I had him as a coach while at Donovan, and just you see those names and those faces, and people change roles, but those connections still remain. That's what I love about what I do. So for sure.
That's great. Coach, Dan, I wish you luck this season, and stay healthy, and hopefully the team stays healthy. And
absolutely, thank you for having me, and the hat's in the mail.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.